Hi there, students. At the expense of. Okay, this means to the detriment of. An example will explain this much more clearly. They have decreased the price at the expense of quality. So they made it cheaper, but it's also not as good as it was. So at the expense of, to the harm of something, to the harm of somebody. So they all had a really good laugh at my expense. They were laughing at me. Many people in our society spend a lot of time at work at the expense of their families. Yeah, so they don't get time to spend with their families, and they are working at the expense of spending time with their children, with their families, with the people that they love. So notice, at the expense of, at somebody's expense. This idea of at somebody's expense could also mean that somebody is paying for it. So I would like to invite you to come and stay in my house. Everything at my expense. Yeah, I will pay for everything. The trip was at the company's expense. The company was paying for it. Yeah. Okay, so at somebody's expense, this is the person who's paying the bill, who's actually fronting the money. So, yeah, living in the life of the lap of luxury at the government's expense, at the taxpayer's expense. So, at the expense of, you do one thing at the expense of another. The first thing harms the second thing. Yeah. So he supported this cause, but at the expense of his good reputation. So it harmed, it damaged his reputation. At the moment, we are pursuing profit at the expense of our environment. We are sacrificing it. It's costing the environment. And then something is at someone's expense, paid for by someone, or with someone at as the victim. So this trip was at the taxpayer's expense. The taxpayer paid, and they were all having a good laugh at my expense. Yeah, with me as the victim. So, at the expense of, in a way that harms something else. Life very often is a trade-off. You can't have anything, and you have one thing at the expense of another. I can do it very quickly, or I can do it very well, but I can't do both. So I can do it quickly at the expense of accuracy, or I can do it slowly at the expense of time. Okay, so the second thing is harm. Yeah, one thing at the expense of another. So let's see, it would be good to have more time, but not at the expense of the client getting angry with us for taking too much time over it. Okay, so with the sacrifice of, with the loss of, at the cost of, at the price of, and this is the idea, to the detriment of, to the expense of. So yes, speed at the expense of safety. Yeah, no, there is nothing that you should do at the expense of safety. If you have an accident, then it doesn't bear thinking about. Okay, so yeah, with the payment of, at the expense of, quantity at the expense of quality. No, I prefer quality at the expense of quantity. A little bit of something very good is much better than a lot of something not very good. Yeah, so quantity at the expense of quality? No, quality at the expense of quantity sounds much better. Okay, at the expense of formality. I think I'm going to give this a 5 in formality. I think you could use it absolutely anywhere. So a nice flexible phrase. And let's see. As to origin, well, at the expense, this comes from this word expensive. Okay, from expendo in Latin, to expend, to spend money, to pay out. Yeah. So enough. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye for now. At the expense of, at someone's expense.